Hello and welcome to today's Teardown sessions. On today's session, we are going to be talking to some really awesome hackers from the Open Source Hardware Association, as well as many other aspects of their creative and technical practices. So we're going to be talking a lot about that in celebration of Open Hardware Month, which is October happening now. And we are going to hear a little bit more about that in a moment. But before we jump into the interview section, that's time for a little roundup of what is going on at Crowd Supply at the moment. So just launched, we have OSHWA, which is a ESP32 based PoE, that's power over Ethernet board with a bunch of different functionality that's literally just launched today. So take a look at that if you are an IoT fan. There's some really great stuff, and it is fully open source as well, which is great. So do check that out. As I say, just launched, so you've got over 40 days to give that creator your support. Next up, we have the delicious looking Deep Deck, which is a delicious ESP32 macro pad. We have got hot swappable keys, we've got rotary encoders, and it's based on the ESP32, which we all know and love. And that's got some really great functionality there as well. And plus, we do love an attractive PCB. It's got a nice design on it there. So that's just gone live as well. So check that out if you're in the market for a macro pad. Also, it does appear to be Macro Pad Month here at Crowd Supply because we have a second open source macro pad from the delightful Leon and Navi, who is a regular creator and a regular viewer of this stream. So if you're out there, Leon, hi. So check that out. This is, again, another cool macro pad, also open source with a bunch of different knobs. So take those. So do check both of those out. And there's some really fun things going there. Both of them, all of them have got quite a bit of time left there. So also, I wanted to highlight some new projects that have come into pre-launch recently. Coming soon, we've got this another delicious-looking board. We do love a purple board here at Crowd Supply. And this is the B-Motion S3, and it is a PIR sensing motion board. Got a little square PIR sensor in there, the SMD package, rather than the kind of semicircular, like a half a sphere that you're used to seeing in other things. But yeah, we've got them all sorts of interesting features for this board, and it's just really nicely designed. Great addition to your toolkit for PIR sensing. Also coming up, we've got the next version of the popular Eduponics project, and this is the next version of when that happened, I guess, in 2019 now. That was a very popular little board, and this is their latest edition. So if you're interested in agriculture and IoT, and this is a great open source version of this for you to check out with lots of great functionality as well. So take a look at that. That's coming soon. Another one coming soon, which I'm really excited about, is glow stitch LEDs. And now these are from a really awesome electronics maker called Steph Piper over in Australia. And this will be her first crowdfunding campaign. So take a look at this. This is already OSHWA certified. These are great little strips of LEDs that you can just run straight through a sewing machine. And you can also just use, as is demonstrated in this image, you can just use some nice fabric tape or copper tape or whatever you ever have at hand. So really worth having in your electronics toolkit, particularly if you're working anywhere in a classroom or a hackerspace. So yeah, check that out, glow stitch. And I'd also recommend finding Steph Piper on Twitter if you're interested in this kind of stuff, because she's really interesting and is doing some other cool stuff as well. Finally, in the coming soon section of Crowd Supply, I wanted to put a little spotlight on the beloved MNT Pocket Reform. Now, you may remember the Reform laptop from a couple of years back, made by Lucas from Berlin, and it was an excellent laptop. And he is back again with a mini laptop, 7 inches, again, fully open source. And this time in some very attractive colors. Look at that lilac. Who doesn't want a little pocket computer like that? So yeah, designed for coding on the go. Very cute. Hackers on trains, indeed. All right, so that's a little look into what we've got going on at Crowd Supply. Let me just remove this, stop that screen. And with no further ado, let's bring on my 2 guests for today. Here we go. We've got And we've got Lee. Hello, both. Please, would you introduce yourself for the viewers here? Maybe starting with Claire. I see you're muted. Let's start with Lee. So there we go.
Thanks so much for having me on here. I'm really excited to chat with you folks. So my name's Lee. I am a maker and academic and researcher and artist. And I make work that mostly focuses on soft circuitry and soft robotics and kind of explores what the relationship is of electronics to the body. So I explore that in a bunch of different ways. I also chair the Open Hardware Summit, and I'm on the board of directors for the Open Source Hardware Association.
And you're also, your writing pops up in a lot of places, doesn't it? Where can we, when we can have a look at your, because you write for Mike magazine now and Hackaday, right? Is that it? Or are there other places we can find your writings?
Yeah, I write for Make, I write for Hackaday, and I also write for a newsletter called The Prepared. Which
nice. We love The Prepared. If you're not on the Prepared mailing list, people run to get on the mailing list. It's an excellent mailing list. I love The Prepared. I love The Prepared stuff. Okay, great. Thank you for that introduction. I've got loads of examples of Lee's work that I'm definitely very excited about sharing later. So please stick around for that. Claire, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself, introducing yourself to the lovely people here?
Yeah, I'd love to. I also have been making things for a lot of my life, but I did pivot careers into making in tech only about 3 years ago. I see very little in that boundary difference between where I come from in crafting and selling things on Etsy. So I focus on wearables because I come from jewelry. I also really like a good evocative, disruptive hack or project. And so I have, for example, a handheld light graffiti projector that me and a partner developed during the 2020 protests because we wanted light projection to be more available out of hardware store parts. And so yeah, that's what comes to mind immediately. But professionally, I also work for Crowd Supply. I'm one of the project managers that works with Helen. And I currently run the Discord for OSHWA. But
Crowd Supply.
Yeah. And the Crowd Supply Discord. Generally a Discord mistress.
Yeah, you are.
I speak Discord. I did help with the summit this year with helping with the talks. So I will hopefully be doing that again next year. I think I am. Yeah.
You are.
That's a really great intro into the topic of Open Hardware Month. Can we talk a little bit about what exactly that is? Now, I do have the webpage here, but I'd really like to hear from you about what it is, what your aims are, what's going on, how people can get involved, that kind of stuff. Well, actually, let's rewind here. I would assume that most people watching a Crowd Supply stream would know what open source hardware is, but let's have a little definition. Let's have a little definition session before we jump into this, because there is actually a lot of confusion around the term open hardware and open source hardware, and it can mean different things to different people. So should we have a little chat about what open hardware means, and specifically what open source hardware with OSHWA means as well, and then we can jump into Open Hardware Month. Before I say that, I would like to say, before we jump into that conversation, I would like to say, please, if you're watching us, and I know there's a few of you watching us today, please jump into the comments and ask us your questions. Please tell us where you're from, say hi. It makes us feel a lot less like we're shouting into the void. So please do keep us company. We do love to hear your questions and comments. And I will bring them in shortly. But yeah, who wants to take there's a very big question there. Do you want to, who wants to go? You can all talk together as well, that's fine.
Lee.
Yeah, I mean, I know me and Claire have talked about this so much, so I know we've talked about so much subject, but basically, like, at its core, the idea is that we should know where our technology comes from, we should know what our technology is doing, and we should be able to share that knowledge with each other. And that doesn't always necessarily mean that everyone can make anything and everyone has every single right to everyone's ideas, but it does mean that we can have some knowledge about where our hardware is coming from, and things are not a black box, they're not a mystery, and they're not restricted in that. The knowledge is not restricted in that way.
Something Alicia says a lot. I have
Alicia being
our director at OSHWA,
yeah.
and one of the founders. She's fantastic, and she speaks all the time she just spreads the word on what open hardware is. And so I picked up a bunch from her. And something she says is that it's atoms versus bits. A lot of people understand open source from the world of software.
Yeah.
Software, though, can be, you make one piece of software, one muffin, you have 1 million muffins, right? Automatically. And that makes open source just very compatible with software because it's so powerful in that way. But taking that concept to hardware, it is a different beast in it, how it functions. And so we're piecing that apart all the time and trying to make it more accessible for people. But at its core, it is the same. I wish to give you all the information that I have in an understandable format. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And then where does OSHWA fit in with all of this, right? Because open hardware isn't OSHWA, right? It's, you know, so yeah, how does OSHWA fit in here?
Yeah,
OSHWA is the Open Source Hardware Association. I'm sorry, I don't like to use acronyms on this stream. Tell myself off there. Open Source Hardware. Where does the Open Source Hardware Association fit into this?
Well, there's tons of organizations that care about open source hardware in different ways. You know, there's a lot of open source movements that like focus. For example, there's the movement for open science hardware that focus on like lab equipment and those kinds of things. So, but there's a whole bunch of organizations that do this. OSHWA specifically has a couple of different initiatives, which I think we'll talk a little bit about. But our big event every year is running the Open Hardware Summit, where people can come and just share different ideas around the subject, share the projects they've been working on, share ideas they have, an open discussion about open hardware. But we also do things like Open Hardware Month, which is awesome, which is just a time that we can like bring attention to the subject. We highlight a bunch of different makers. We have a talk series going, and we also encourage people to get their work open hardware certified. So Claire, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the certification aspect.
Yeah, I won't go deeply into the process, but as a general overview, we are a certification platform so that I think it's a really useful functionality, because when you see that something is Open Source Hardware Association certified, you know that you're going to be getting a certain type and amount of information. And so you don't have to go in being like, okay, they say it's open source, but what am I getting? Which is fine. I have no problem with that, but it's really useful if you have a similar framework and language, and that's what this is. It's optional. You don't have to do it to be open source, but it helps, right?
Yeah, it is. It's a set of guidelines I find useful. Actually, something I tend to use the certification for checking on licenses, and just as a repository for finding the files that have been shared. So I actually find it really useful from that. Like I was looking at, what was I looking at? Oh yeah, the BeagleBoard. I was looking at the different licenses because someone was basically being like, oh, I can copy this and just not make it open source. And I was like, I don't think that's right, actually. So I looked at the BeagleBoard and I looked at what licenses it was released under. And I was able then to go back and say, look, no, you can't do that. That's like stealing.
So important. Yes, this comes up all the time, which is a big catch with open source, that people tend to focus on the financials, but we find attribution to be as much, if not more, of a big deal. And if you go check if someone has said, I would like to be attributed in this way, and you do that, that just smooths a million problems away.
100%. It's just great etiquette.
And it doesn't necessarily mean, I think there's a lot of confusion around it too. Like if you publish the source of something, like, are you you know, like making a bad financial decision? There's lots of open source projects that are definitely like, you know, financially viable. There's lots of different ways that you can position that. And also, you know, if you do find that somebody, like the BeagleBoard example you're talking about, you know, if things are open and they're documented, people can see your license, it's also a way to protect you while sharing knowledge as well.
Yeah, very cool. I just wanted to, before we go back to this, I'm going to see who's here. I wanted to say hi to Liz. Blitz City DIY has joined us. Hello from Boston. Hi there, Liz. Love your work. Nice to see you here. We also have Matt from New Guard Audio, who's here from Texas. Recognize that name. Thanks for coming back and joining us, Matt. Hello, nice to see you. We have the delightful Timon Sku, which is Timon, who is the P. Unera creator and a good friend of mine from Frankfurt, who's in the house. Thanks for joining us, Timon. Says, very excited about seeing the, oh, wow, you saw the Pocket Refund prototype in real life a couple of weeks ago. Okay, I'm jealous. You got to tell us what that was like in the comments. Oh, he did. Gonna be so cool. Okay, cool. And Leon and Avi, whose latest MacroPad project I gave a shout out for right at the back of the stream, is in the house. Thank you for joining us, Leon, from Bulgaria. And Ali's, ooh, how do you pronounce that? Ali Cedric. Okay, let's say hello from just down the road in Portland, Oregon. Well, I'm in Portland, Oregon, so hi. And then I have a comment that I have no idea about. So someone says, Cedric Villani said, is PSpice and OrCAD still in use? An EET in 2001, so I've been out for a while. I've got to say, I have no idea what either of those things are. So do either of you? Or 2001 was way before I was doing electronics. So pass, I'm afraid. Can't answer that one for you. So yeah, thanks for saying hi. Please bring in your questions if you have any. So back to Open Hardware Month. So we've had a little discussion. We've defined what open source hardware is and what OSHWA is and how OSHWA is related to those things. We've talked a little, we've mentioned the fact that you have a summit and Open Hardware Month, but maybe it's time to dig in a little bit deeper into both of those events, what you're doing and how people can get involved. Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh,
so,
I'll announce my username as Electric. That's a good one. I like it. I will remember that for later. Thank you. Go ahead, Lee.
Oh, I was just saying on the Open Hardware Month website that you've got, there's a tab for events, and I think this is kind of the easiest way that people can see what's going on for Open Hardware Month. So there's a whole bunch of events. Some of them are talks, some of them are local events. Next Wednesday, we're hosting part of our monthly talk series. We're kind of kicking it off this month through Open Hardware Month. So we've got a talk on the 19th. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of like really awesome events that are all around the world. And if you have more events that are happening in October and you'd like them featured on the Open Hardware Month website, then send us an email and let us know, and we'll definitely get them up.
Nice. Okay, so we've got the upcoming events there. We've also got, I see that there's a design contest going on for PCBWay. Do you know anything about that? Is it just generally open, or? I guess we can click on the link and find out, can't we? Let's see, because they've listed that. Here we are, fifth PCB design course, participate now. That's quite fun. All right, that's a very flashy website as well. My goodness. All right, so if you're a PCB designer and you're making open source PCBs, might be worth checking that out as well. That's cool. And this one's is this call for proposals? Is that what's this link? Tell us. Is this for just a month, or is it for the summit, or like what's this?
Yeah, we're launching a monthly talk series, and it came about because we had so many amazing proposals. Like me and Claire had like the hardest time deciding on who would talk at the summit because there were so many amazing talks. So we decided to kind of find a way to spread this out throughout the year. So every month we're going to be hosting like an interview style chat with myself and Sid Dermay, who's our community manager at OSHWA. And we're inviting people to submit a talk and or submit a subject, and it's pretty casual interview, kind of similar to this. Yeah. So yeah, if anyone's interested in doing one of our monthly talks, then I would invite you to submit one.
And how does somebody find this proposal and call for proposals?
Yeah, it's on our OSHWA Association Twitter account, and it should be on our website soon. But yes,
I'll find that link and drop it in the chat.
It's extremely fresh. This is dropped this week, so get in early.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, great. Yeah, so Liz said that's a brilliant idea to have talks year round.
Thank you.
So that's great. So people would find this on your Twitter that's just gone out. They find the call for Open Hardware Month things on the website or on your Twitter as well. So tell us, do you have anything you wanted to share about the summit? So that's already, this corporate proposals is already done for that, or is that for last year? I can't remember. When is it? March?
It's April.
March.
So,
There we are, I was close.
yeah, we're just kind of gearing up for it now. So it's going to be April 28th and 29th. We're actually really excited to have a 2-day summit because we're hoping really very much to be back in person. And it's going to be awesome. There's some really cool things upcoming that, I would say keep an eye on. So the summit has a different Twitter. OH Summit is our Twitter account. So keep following us, and the call for proposals will be there soon, and all our cool schemes will soon become clear.
Amazing. Do we know where it's going to be, or is that top secret for now?
It's going to be in New York.
Okay, cool, nice. Okay, awesome. Very exciting.
As a pitch, we are very prolific on Twitter on both accounts, and we've been making memes. So you probably.
Shout out to Sid again for these awesome open hardware memes.
Yeah, your open hardware meme game is doing quite well now. Also, if you want to get involved, I wanted to share this. So Claire, did you want to tell us a little bit about this?
Yep, we have a Discord. It's a good one. I run it. It's a great place to go, like ask questions generally, or it's, I like to think that it's really friendly to people who feel new or nervous or uninformed. It's really geared around information and education. And it's one of the more friendly, welcoming communities that I've met. Like our summit, one of the biggest pieces of feedback that we got a lot of, and I was so proud of, was how inclusive we felt. And I'm really gearing the Discord towards that. And all it really needs is a bit more action, because I think that people were there for the summit, and then it takes time to build that community. So I'm invested. I love you.
Yeah, that's really cool. All right, so I've put the, if you want to see, there's an invite with the banner there as well. Okay, so, oh, wait, I've just clicked on the wrong thing. That's fine. So I feel like we've talked about broadly what the open source hardware association does, what the things are, what open source is. I want to come back to open source hardware in a moment, but I also wanted to talk a little bit about your own personal practices, because I think that really informs how you interact with technology. So let's start here. So I've been a big fan of Lee's work for many years now, although have we met in real life ever? I'm not sure. I can't remember.
I think at least once. I can't remember where, but it must have happened.
But there's people that I'm like convinced I've met, and like turns out actually I've never met in real life. So, so let's take.
Feel like I've met you.
Yeah, I feel like I've met you too, but I don't know if that's accurate. I've met you through the internet, which is all that counts, right? So one of my favorite things, I want to start with the zines, if that's okay. And so I love these zines. I love them, love them, love them. Can you tell us a little bit about them?
Yeah, I started to make these zines because I sort of realized at one point in my electronics career that there was all these like little tiny pieces of knowledge that everyone seemed to have, and that there was never a good opportunity for anyone to kind of tell me. And I always felt a little bit silly, like not really knowing what like an SPST switch was or something like that. You know, there's little tiny things where there's just never a good opportunity for anyone to tell me. And my education's all in fine arts, so you know, I didn't have any engineering classes. So I kind of started to compile these zines on LEDs, wires, and buttons, because I think they're like 3 deceptively simple topics. Like everyone's like, oh yeah, and then you put a wire on it. But you know, like there's so much information about wires that no one ever sits you down and tells you. So these 3 zines are kind of like an opportunity to share those little pieces of knowledge with people who are learning.
And did these zines like come out of your teaching practice? Because I know that you've taught a bit, right? So this is the kind of thing that I would imagine that people who are starting out would find incredibly useful, as well as people who are coming to electronics from a less traditional background. For example, like, you know, me and Claire. And so, you know.
I like every time I teach a class, I always feel like I could like talk for like, I could talk for like 5 or 6 hours about a subject and still not have given my students all the information I want them to have about the subject. Like I want them to know every little thing that I love about these electronic components. So I just, they're kind of companion pieces, and just sort of, meant to deliver those little pieces of information. There's never really like a good opportunity to share, but I feel like everyone should have the opportunity to know.
Yeah, I agree. I love them. I mean, and there's a really nice little subculture of tech zines as well. Keep meaning to write one myself. Yeah, so many really amazing projects here. Just so many really amazing projects. I know that there's, this one is great. So this is Voids here. Look at this. Who doesn't love this? Do you want to talk about, actually, do you know what? I'm just going to show, I don't know if this will actually play, but shall I just try and play this 18-second video? I don't know if there's any, look at this. Here we go.
Yeah, there's no audio. This is a piece that I've been working on for a few years. It's gone through a few different editions. So you're just showing the old one. This is the newest one. And it's really simple. It's actually just using like a two-way mirror, like the kind of glass you'd see on the edge of a building. So it's like during the day, it's a mirror, and during the night, you can see everything that's inside. So it's just using two LED strips to kind of like reverse the like reflection. And there's two of them. So this is one of them, but there's two, and they kind of hang next to each other. Two people put their heads inside them, and you look at each other, but when one is transparent, the other one is a mirror. So you are looking at yourself while the other person is looking at you.
That's super nice. That's super nice. Really great. Lots of great art projects there using electronics. I also want to take a look just generally at, it's really interesting to see that you've you've made a little shop here. You've got stickers, you've got like 555 pin, you've got your zines, you've got all these like buttons and rings and like clickers and custom alligator clips. Like, you've got quite a reasonable little store here. I really want one of these clicky rings. They look great. I'm not a big jewelry person, but these are tempting me. So has it been like experimenting with manufacturing? I mean, like, so alligator clips, I'm guessing you got those manufactured somewhere, but to your custom colors, but are you like DIYing these buttons and rings and like that kind of stuff, It'd be really interesting to hear like how you're actually managing this.
Yeah, that's really interesting you bring it up because there's two completely different workflows here. I of course, when I ordered the clips, there was minimum order quantities. It was a whole thing. I still have about 10,000 sets of clips. If anyone wants any, please order some. But the rings are all made to order. So I make them out of salvaged parts. So sometimes it takes a little while for me to like find all the parts I need to make them. But it's like, a much more like personal involved process. And I started making them because I am a fidgeter, and I was always like fidgeting with buttons I had on my desk, and I was like, probably other people want this too. And it turns out that they do.
As you were saying this, I was like fidgeting with my hand, like underneath the desk. Oh dear, funny. Well, it's really cool. I very much enjoyed seeing your little DIY shop get built out, but enjoyed seeing your work over the years. Very cool. All right, so I'd like to move on a little bit to Claire. Let's have a little introduction to your work. Now, I first met Claire, obviously, because we worked together, but I believe we were following each other on Twitter before that, because I've seen a lot of your work on LEDs, and that became after your light graffiti projector. Can you talk a little bit about your personal practice, like the kind of things that you like to work with and some of your projects?
Ooh. It's such a big question for me.
I know. I'm sorry, but I've asked it.
No, I always err towards giving some context, which is that I've been making and selling things since I was 14. Seriously, like that's the point that I got serious. I was making things when I was younger. I came from enough crafting resources and had the drive. So I was making and selling things at festivals and then Comic-Cons and sci-fi fantasy conventions and selling on Etsy from the beginning. And tools have just progressed. And so I
True.
heard about laser cutting a long time ago, and I actually side note, I also ran a juggling club, met a magician. That magician had a laser cutter. And I ended up running my laser cut projects through him because at the time nobody else had one. Um, and I
Is
have
that
always
where the Twitter handle comes from?
yeah, so laser cutting is one of my it's got a lot of flash to it. Like I had a sign in my booth for a long time that was like handmade, but made by lasers, which is cooler. You know, these things have certain social weight that I've always found really interesting. And I come
Mm.
from crafting with like I love hot glue. I love hot glue.
Great in electronics too. Hot
And I
glue.
just yeah, and I have worked with clay or I can use a sewing machine. These are all just tools. And so pivoting into like maker culture is interesting because those lines don't make a ton of sense to me, but I understand culturally. Um, so I've made a lot of stuff, is my point. And now I'm trying to pin it down to maker projects that I've documented that appeal to the maker crowd. And I'm only kind of just getting started in that because I pivoted into hardware 3 years ago. So the biggest one that's made the most bang is this light projector graffiti tutorial. Um, it's something that has my heart and soul because I think it has such power for activists. Um, I projected onto the Justice Center um, in 2020 here in Portland, and no one can stop me. And like, and it's about the size of this, so nobody can clock me either. I have it on my shoulder. I was also using solar power back then, and I was helping people
Mm.
charge their electronics at the protests, and I was
Mhm.
using a lot of QR codes, and that was fascinating because culturally at the time, QR codes were much more suspicious than they are now, even 2 years later, because we've been using them throughout the pandemic so much that people have less concerns about them. Anyway, I make a lot of different things. I've documented only a few of them. And I think one of the things I'm most proud of is making what I do understandable and accessible. I know that's a passion point for both of you as well, and a lot of people here. And it's somewhat invisible
Yeah.
work, right? Like it makes your work look very good, which makes people want you to make more work. But they don't. I don't think they appreciate what it takes all the time. And that's a heart and soul of open source. Open source is love, right? I believe in that because it takes a lot of love.
It does, absolutely does. And I really do appreciate your writing and the way that you document things in a way that is very accessible to people and very readable as well, which is really important. Hence my passion for lack of acronyms and so on. Brilliant. Okay, so for both of you, if people want to learn more about your projects and keep up to date on your stuff, what's the best way to keep in touch with you? Is it Twitter or GitHub or like all of
For
the
me,
above?
it's Twitter.
All
Yeah,
right, so
Twitter.
all right, so this is Claire's Twitter is Laser Mistress. And this is Lee's Twitter, Leeborg_. So that's really interesting. So please
on all platforms, I'm the same person. So find me everywhere.
yeah. I'm almost the same person on everything, but apart from Instagram, which someone else has taken it for. Okay, cool. So I've got a few. There's some discussions happening in the chat that I wanted to bring up. So let's scroll back down. So there's a couple of questions. Let's move on from that though. So we did get a question. So remember back at the beginning, Cedric asked if PCBWay and OrCAD are still in use, and we didn't know, but somebody's piped up in the comments. We've got so Drew Festini, thanks for joining us, Drew, says Cadence, OrCAD, and Allegro are still used in some organizations like TI, Texas Instruments. However, if you're getting back into it, because Cedric said that that they were out for a while since 2001. So if you're getting back into it, you should check out KiCad, which is open source, cross-platform, and quite capable. I fully agree. And MG says that PSpice is still in use as well, which is interesting. Okay, cool. So here we go. So Timonsku, so Leon Anavo says +1 for KiCad, and then says a really interesting point here saying, I don't see any reason from the community point of view for using proprietary software for making open source hardware. Now, this is something that I've heard a lot. Can we spend a little bit of time talking about the good practice in the openness of tools? I think this is a really interesting jumping off point. Who wants to take that? We can all talk at once, because I know everybody here has got some interesting things to say on that.
Just real quick, a way that I sort conversations like this one in particular, is between my macro kind of moral philosophical standpoint and the micro of the reality and how I participate. My laser is proprietary, right? Like, yeah, so just to start it off, I like that difference.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. For me, I think that the point that Leon's making is the best practice. So if the point of open source hardware is for us to be able to share, learn from other people's designs, like riff off of other people's designs, be able to distribute that, then any way that you can remove barriers to that is best practice, right? And whether that means using software that is easily accessible. So for example, if you're using Altium and you release your board files, well, cool, but you are limiting you're limiting the number of people who can actually use that to the people who can afford Altium or people who are already Altium using. So I would say, like, especially now KiCad is much better than it was in previous years. I think it's a really good idea to take a look into it. It's not the only solution, but it's increasingly best practice, to be able to maintain that access. However, here we are, Timon's just taken the point out of my mouth that, yeah, it does depend on the type of project. And there's still a lot of situations where KiCad is not practical. I'm sure we'll have some comments on that coming up. But yeah, I agree. There is this ideal, right? There's this we want everything to have editable KiCad files. We want everything to be, all of the items on the bill of materials to be accessible in like quantity 1, right? So it's no good having a piece of open source hardware if nobody can buy the chip, Raspberry Pi. They've made their chip, the RP2040, widely available, so I can't fault them on that. We're all desperate for the silicon. But yeah, it's however, that's not necessarily the reality of the situation. Like if you're gonna, it's about meeting with, I think from the crowd supply angle as well, because like we focus on open source hardware, right? But not everything we do is, or everything that our creators do is like OSHWA certified. Not everybody releases their editable board files. Not everybody has like best practices. But for us, it's about like meeting people where they're at and trying to push them like one step more open. So, we have like a minimum viable, like we won't run something that doesn't have a certain level of openness, but best practice doesn't always align with the possibilities for a particular creator or a particular project. So, well,
and that's part of the project.
That's my course.
It's part of what we do as a community, and it's part of why we have these discussions. It's part of why we have open tools, right? Like, we can look at these tools that are like closed source and we can say, okay, like, why is this a more viable option? Who in our community is positioned to tackle this issue and make it better? Like, we can't just immediately assume that everyone's going to stop using all closed source software ever because it's the moral right thing to do, right? Like, there's like, even when you say accessibility, it means so much to different people. Are we talking about like financial accessibility? Are we talking about like, it being like screen reader friendly? Are we talking about like access to like tools to learn things? Like, there's so many other questions, and it's not, I would love that to be the only factor, but we live in a really complex world, and we have to like work together to find the solutions so that we can live in a better technology world.
Yeah, I agree. A few more things saying, so following on from this comment, Timon said, there are tons of projects out there that are fully suitable for KiCad. It's all about scope and complexity, which I do agree with. And then Leon, who I know is a big KiCad fan, saying that features do follow users and that KiCad has improved dramatically over recent years, which is absolutely true. I mean, CERN, the European Particle Acceleration Lab, they put a bunch of money into open hardware, and that includes they put a bunch of developers onto KiCad full-time a few years back, and that definitely massively helped. It's really interesting seeing how much of open source hardware progress is kind of like it's starting to get. You mentioned the open science hardware. I can't remember their particular title, but the open science hardware people, right? They've got the GOSH, which is the Gathering for Open Science Hardware. I think that's what it stands for. So they're a really interesting team and they focus specifically on science hardware. So you see a lot of academics who are sharing things and a lot of like community-based scientists as well. And like, to me, that's one of the more interesting aspects of like the way that the open source hardware community is growing. So I'd be really interested to hear what's exciting you about because I mean, like, how long have you been interested in open source hardware? Like at least like a few years, both of you, right? So and that I feel like it has changed even in the last couple of years. So I'd be really interested to hear from both of you about A, how you think things have changed and are changing, and B, what aspects of open hardware like really excite you both the most? Like what are you in it for? Like what like gets you out of bed and onto your computer talking about open source hardware? Another big question, sorry.
Yeah, I do have thoughts. I do. I'm making my excited face. So this is something that I have talked about before, because I've been in electronics for about 3 years, but I have been, I got into a group called Precious Plastic 6-ish years ago. That is worth a search. Precious Plastic is a series of small-scale plastic recycling machines coming out of the Netherlands, and they have open sourced to a degree that is just, it's my heart. They have not only open sourced the design, but they've created an entire community and website whose entire purpose is to get as many people as possible who want to do this into it. So they have entire PDFs for people who can't do more than just talk to other people about it. That's a teaching resource they have, where they're like, if all you want to do is inspire other people, we need you, right? If all you want to do is build the machines, we need you. They have hundreds of thousands of people all over the world who are invested in working on this. It's deeply inspirational. I've known about that for a while. And when I first got into it, like 6 years ago, people really didn't understand the concept of like, okay, that's really cool, but what do you mean I could do it? I feel like a term that I find useful is the Overton window. And the Overton window is our cultural concept of what is real, or what is it's political, like what is politically possible, or what our talking points are that all of us kind of agree on as existing, is how I think of that framework. So an example I really like is the Overton window on the stability of statues in America shifted in 2020. For example, and at that same time, during the pandemic, the Overton window on open source, who understands what it is and what it's for and the power of it, shifted dramatically because of masks. We saw this in action on a scale that is unimaginable, and that stuck with people. And so at the summit this year, I feel like we saw a massive backlash or output from that, where we got academics and government agencies and individuals that were like, oh, I found my purpose. I get it now. I'm here. That's why we're doing the monthly talks. We got so many people that we haven't seen before, and groups. So I'm really interesting. Like this, we're in this generative golden age right now that I'm seeing. So
that's exciting. What is it that particularly excites you about open source hardware? Is it just the push towards openness in general?
Me.
you know. Yeah.
Something I've started saying lately, because I do teach everything I learn. I said to a friend recently, I was like, I think I get a lot of joy from someone else feeling empowered and joyful. So on a certain level, it's selfish for me. I just do get a lot out of it. I do.
That's fair enough. And how about you, Lee? Do you have any comments on the evolution of open source hardware and what it means to you?
I mean, I love what you're saying, Claire, just like about how all of this is like really inherently political. And I feel like a lot of people who are involved in this, like from one way or another, like came to it through some sort of like political or ethical motivation. I really came to a lot of this stuff through my work. So I'm working on finishing my PhD, and I do a lot of research on like critical theory and science technology studies. And through doing that, I really realized like the impact that technology has on society and how technology is not really neutral. And the things that we are kind of trained to overlook in our technology, and the things that we're trained to like kind of put to the background and like put in a black box and never look at and not know what they're about. So some of that is knowledge. Some of that is like, how do we do this? But some of that is like, what is my computer doing? How is it processing the things that I think it's processing? How is it showing me information? How is the software working? How is the hardware working? So like this idea that the source of something can be opened or closed is exactly what you're talking about, Claire. It's like people don't consider that there is anything below their technology. So that's really what like that discussion. Like your computer's not just your computer, you know, there's so much there, and there's technical things, and like the philosophy of the technology is baked right into how it's designed and how it's built. So that's kind of what really gets me excited. I also really like the idea of art being open source hardware, especially like I know all of us
having that some conversation so much recently.
Yes. Yeah, like how do artists do some of the wacky things that they do? I feel like we should be sharing this more, you know?
Yeah, I agree. Well, there's also that like high, like artist mystique kind of situation that's in play there, right? Nobody wants to see how easy it is to do the, people are like terrified by it, like people being like, "That's all. I can just do that. It's easy," like as if that's all there is to it. Yeah. I agree with you. Actually, I came into I've been in open source hardware for a long time now, but before I did that, I was actually really interested in open data and open mapping and like open GIS, which is geographic information systems. And I think you talk about the Overton window, and I do agree that I think that it is part of a broader push towards openness more generally. There's a lot of like this like philosophy of information, right? Who should have it, and who should control it, and who can share it, and who can learn from it. And I think that's part of a broader push, which is why it's quite exciting. My dog's having a go at somebody downstairs. Sorry about that. Yeah, absolutely. So open source hardware is, I do feel like it's a lot less developed though than open source software. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about areas in which you think there needs, more effort, better resources, better adoption. Like, where do you see this going forward? And how do you see it going forward?
Yeah, I think it's always really, every time I think of open source, documenting your open source hardware project, I think of like this, exercise I've seen people do with kids teaching them to program, where like you tell someone how to make a peanut butter sandwich, but you do it like really in a literal sense, and you kind of do exactly what they say. And of course the sandwich never goes together, you're like, put the peanut butter on the bread, and you put it on the bread. So like I always think of that when I see people's projects documented. I think that people need a little bit, like there's clear ways that we've decided. We have like GitHub, we have tools that like help us document our software projects. But like, how can we document a hardware project in a way that it is reproducible and people understand what you mean? And people understand what you mean even when it's a concept that's like not intuitive to them, that they've never done before, right? So I think that's something I'm really excited about, is like finding ways to not use, like not try to shoehorn software documenting tools into hardware, but like to give people the tools to document the things they need to share.
Yeah, I agree. And Claire, any response for you on that one?
Yeah, better tools. We're figuring out better tools, and that's really exciting because dropping the like teaching barrier for people that it's less intuitive for is a really big deal. And I don't know, I think that anybody who's interested in open sourcing their project should have a go at teaching someone they know in person about their product at least once, from top to bottom. Like, this is how you would make this. That experience is something I've had for a lot of my life. That interpersonal kind of skill building is something I've done where I have an idea of how people learn and how to communicate information. And I find through my work at Crowd Supply that there's a lot of people who have an idea of how that should work for other people, but they haven't actually done it much. And there's a disconnect there where the resources they're giving just aren't enough or don't have the joie de vivre, the like someone can actually learn from this. So try to teach someone in person, and then look at tutorials on Instructables or any number of places. Look at really nice tutorials. That's the same as what you want to be doing in your open source project.
I do think that's quite a different skill set often to the skill set that is traditionally associated with creating hardware. I wonder if you think that there's any possibility that, so like in open source software, you create a project and like other people, like add to it, and like you have more of a collaborative experience, right? So you're drawing on other people's skills. And I was wondering if you saw like any open source hardware projects that are there any that are already doing this kind of collective collaboration, or do you think that it's not really, do you think that would work in hardware even? I'm just trying to think of like ways that it can be, like real-time collaboration is difficult on a hardware document, obviously, but then there's all the extra things that come around it, the documentation that you were talking about there. Is there a way that we can share that load?
I think absolutely, but in my experience, it takes someone spearheading it. You kind of need someone with the heart and soul who's going to carry it when it's not fun, and you need people who are willing to do the grunt work. You can have more than one, but it's typically one, and then make it so that other people can pull a whole bunch of other labor.
Yeah, I mean, open source hardware in some ways, and particularly for certain projects, is a lot about community and being able to. I mean, most of the successful open hardware creators that certainly that I hang out with are also extremely good at community. Peter Esden, for example, Bunny and Sobs, like all of these like superstar hardware creators are also excellent at communication in one method or another. Like Peter does live streams, Bunny is an amazing writer, like, people have different things, but I think like being a successful open source hardware creator, and there's lots of different ways to define success, of course, but I think like some of the most successful do have that ability to manage community or be able to communicate in one of the ways that humans communicate, right? Whether that's TikTok or magazine articles or whatever you think, So I think, and I did actually, I know we don't have loads of time left because somehow we've already spoken for nearly 54 minutes, but I know both of you have been involved in this. So community building within open source hardware. I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts on the advantages, the pitfalls, the etc. I know that your eyes lit up there, Claire. So please talk to me about this, the specifics of building community and maintaining community in open source hardware. What you do, etc. We've only got 6 minutes left, though, so can you fit it all in, like in 6 minutes, please?
If anybody's genuinely interested in my opinion, I am obviously happy to TED Talk.
Yeah. Please, no, I'm very.
Join me on the OSHWA Discord and ask. But like, you don't have to have community skills to do a piece of open source hardware. You really don't. But it helps.
If you want contributions.
If you want to get it out there and want people to feel empowered to actually interact with your project, which is why you're open sourcing it, right? So
Yeah.
Yeah, and
How
I
do you-
think it too is like trying to get people to care. Like it's in general in anything in life, it's always hard to get people to care about your thing as much as you care about your thing, and being able to like communicate like the value of the thing and why you think it's cool and why you're excited about it, and like, you know, it's a whole other thing. And also hardware requires like space and like physical things in a way that like open source software doesn't. You can't just download the repo and run it, you know, like of course that's not always the same with software, but like you know, you need things. There's supply chain shortages, there's things that are available in different parts of the world, there's ways of like ordering things that are not the same for everyone. And if you want people around the world to contribute to it, you have to be able to understand that like things physically come to different people differently.
Yeah, this is part of why I really like, I'm enamored with the idea of designing things with kind of very available hardware store parts, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. If you have to order everything off of Mauser, which, you know, obviously I like ordering things off of Mauser, but for somebody who's new to it, they're like, what is this? It's terrifying. Why is the search functionality terrible? I'm going to get fired for that. Sorry. Mauser's like, excuse me. Oh, Lord. Yeah. No, I agree. Very cool. Okay, so we are nearly over. There's been like a huge conversation going on in the comments as we talk about this. The KiCad conversation between Timon and Leon has been going. It's kept going. Also, it's making some really interesting. Oh, there's a question that I missed. Oh my goodness. So I'm going to talk about the KiCad conversation, but then there's another question. Here we go. It's a good question to. So we're still talking about KiCad. Leon's point was that using proprietary CAD is an additional barrier to the community for modifying and improvement. And Timon's counterpoint, which was very accurate, says that's not the only consideration that goes into the project. I'd rather have ORCOD open source hardware than none at all. And Timon later says, you know, I hope we get to the state where the status quo is open source compilers, for example, CAD. And Leon's like, the only way to get open source tools better is to use and step-by-step approve them. No doubt that doesn't happen overnight. Absolutely. So we've seen enormous improvement in KiCad, just as one example of some open source hardware-related software, just in the recent years. So it's definitely making progress. It's all very exciting. Particularly, yeah, the Blender example. So Blender's integration with KiCad is excellent. So very cool. All right, so that's KiCad conversation going on. But also we have a question here from MG. So saying, do you have any suggestions where newbies could/should look for small lot hardware manufacturers? And if so, how would you evaluate them? Wow, that's a question. Any newbies? So hardware. So if you're looking for boards, OSHWA, of course, OSHPARK. There's a lot of small run boards. They don't do assemblies. A nice small run assembly that a few of our creators have been using recently is Cyber City Circuit, which is based out in Georgia, Atlanta.
Yeah.
Pass. And also Screaming Circuits, and both of whom I did factory tours with. So if you scroll back through the Crowd Supply Teardown Sessions playlist, you will find a factory tour of Screaming Circuits and a factory tour of the other one that I said, Cyber City Circuits, who did the Jose Castillo's sensor board watch. I did a stream while they were doing the assembly of that. So take a look at those two, I would recommend. And any other recommendations from the panel here?
I think those are pretty solid recommendations.
Yeah. They could make it friendly, like small batch stuff, I would say. Yeah, it's very cool.
This is also, as a side note, a really great question to ask on Discord. Like Discord has a couple of functionalities, and sourcing from a community to be like, what do you use? It's really good for that.
Yeah. Well, okay, so we are, the stream time is over. So I wanted to see if you had any final parting words of wisdom or shout outs for things that you want people to apply to or help you with, or places for people to follow you, things for people to buy, now is your time to send in your plugs or send out your requests. If you've got any.
Yeah, just reminding folks, we talked earlier about the monthly talks. I would love to see submissions from everyone watching. That would be great. And yeah, I don't know, look forward to chatting with people on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
My camera battery just died. So here we are. Yeah, we've got the attractive. This isn't quite as good a camera, but we're all good. It's a bit greasy as well. Oh dear, never mind. Live streams, lol. And what about you, Claire? You got anything you want to? Oh, I know you've got something. Can you please tease the thing that I've been desperate for you to talk
You
about?
did ask me it. I keep spacing.
Tell the people about the new thing that's going to happen.
First, just echoing everything that Lee said, we would love to see more faces generally, but also like if you have anyone around you that's interested. Yeah, I know a lot of you are hardware nerds. If anyone around you is an interested like newbie, like send them our way. We're really friendly. Send them to our Discord. Send them to the Open Hardware Month. Send them to the talks. Yeah, and then for Open Hardware Month, I'm trying to finish my LED guide for artists and non-technical people. And LEDs are my love language, and I know a lot. So I'm trying to share all of that. I think it's up to 15 pages.
Yeah.
Let us see real quick.
It's really awesome.
So excited to read that.
Yeah, it's so great. Here we go. Look at this.
Just, yep, you can see how.
Oh, wow.
17
it's
pages.
a really nice document. Very plain language, very personal, very full of personality. It's probably, and I've read a lot of LED guides. I would say this is my favorite LED guide of all time. So I'm very excited for you to publish this, Claire.
Thank you.
I've been excited for you to publish this since I first saw it at the Hardware Happy Hour.
I think it's a huge strength to be a little bit newer and to be pivoting from other places, because I have that current understanding. I remember not knowing certain things, and I'm just writing it down. So I'm trying to get that done, but it is an ongoing and open source project. So I use Google Docs because I find it to be more accessible to non-technical people, but I am going to put it in a repo, and people can either pull request or fork it, and I will be editing it and maintaining it. So I'd love other people's technical information. That would make it so much stronger. So keep an eye out for that. Twitter is the best place to keep track of me, and when I do that, I will make a lot of noise about it. So
yeah, great. All right, so we've got MG who says thanks for the answer. Matt from New God Audio says thanks for the discussion, great topic. Leon and Navi says thanks for the live stream. Enjoy Open Source Hardware Month. Thank you, Leon. And if you're interested in a macro pad, please don't forget to check out Leon's current campaign, which is live. And we've got Blizz City DIY, Liz, saying, yes, that looks like a fantastic guide. Not just looks like, Liz, it is. It is actually amazing. So, and Jason, oh, hello, Jason. I didn't realize you were here. Hello, lovely to see you. Jason's the guy who does the Fibonacci things. In fact, he's been collaborating with Ben Hank, who does the Pixel Blaze, which is a crowd supply campaign, and Deborah, who is Geek Mom Projects on Twitter. And they've got this really amazing, have you seen it? The like little wearable. I thought I had one on my backboard there, but I don't. Yeah, Lavalier, that's the name of it. Lavalier Lux or something. Anyway, yeah, go and check that out. Beautiful LED thing. So very cool. LED supergroup. Yeah, absolutely.
It is like when superheroes get together.
It is, right? Pixel Blaze, what? and Fibonacci, and yeah, really great. And that used to be a meme. Anyway. So thanks for the great stream. Thank you, Timon. Thanks for joining us. All right, we have massively run over, but that's okay. We've had a nice time doing it. Here we are. Yeah, I agree. Look, here we are. The perfect trio. One makes the controller, one the LEDs, and the other the projects. Yeah, absolutely. What a star collaboration between those three. And I'm happy to say it's as beautiful in real life as it is. And the only thing that's wrong with it is it's not a crowd supply campaign, frankly. Yeah, Yeah, right? We got to have a chat, Jason. All right. Well, on that note, thank you so much to the two of you for joining us me here on the Crowd Supply stream. I will see you all again. It
was teased here.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for joining us both. For those of you who are regular watchers of the stream, I will let you know that next week we will be talking to Darian Johnson, who is the creator of the Newt. We did have an interview with him while the campaign was running. Now the campaign has ended and been successfully delivered, and he's created loads of exciting new firmware. So we're going to be going through some of the new functionality of the Newt, as well as just catching up with Darian and seeing what he's up to, because he's an awesome guy making awesome hardware. So
that's really exciting. I love that project.
Yeah. And we had a great chat last time as well. And then after that, so that's next week. Then the next stream will be coming live from LA on the 4th of November. We're going to SuperCon, the Hackaday SuperCon conference in LA, and we'll be coming live from that. And I'll be interviewing people and taking notes on some of the cool stuff that's coming out of that conference. So put those both in your diary, and we'll see you again soon. Again, thank you to everybody for joining us. And a special massive thank you to our guests today, Lee Cyborg and Claire Danielle Cassidy. Major props, and thank you so much for your work with the Open Source Hardware Association. All right, bye everybody.
All right, thank you. Bye.
Bye.